Today can be the turning point in your life by making a simple decision.
Fundamental questions of navigation. Where am I? Where am I going? And how do I get there from here?
I invite the leaders of our planet to ask themselves these three questions before they make any crucial decisions.
But if you don't make decisions, you're going to stay right where you are.
We are all map makers.
We are in a time of transition.
If we're going to change, we have to change the direction that we're going.
Our planet needs leaders who know where they want to go.
When we change the direction we're going, then we want to make sure we're going in the right direction.
Leaders who can see the big picture.
Because if we're not, we're going to either go backwards or we're going to stay where we are.
Recognizing the psychological and the spiritual shifts and changes that need to be made, often from the inside to the outside.
To be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm.
Complex journeys require navigation. The path to the truth is one such journey. This is your GPS. Hairstyling services provided by J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Ladera Street.
Today. So I am calling this show today, Hidden in Plain Sight. What are they really after in Morgan's Bluff? And it's kind of interesting that I'd be doing this show, because this show in part, well, the topic of this show, I should say, in part, was one of the reasons why I believe my former show was abruptly canceled. It makes one wonder, you know, were we mashing some corns there? Or what really went down? And so I'm being joined today by two gentlemen who are going to bring a fresh perspective on this whole question of the Morgan's Bluff project and why it is such a catch for those who are actively seeking to lock it down. And so I want to welcome to the show critical thinker C.Allen Johnson, and also welcome to the show Prescott Smith, who is an environmental activist and also a man who lives off of the sea in terms of his work as what do you call the work that you do, Prescott? You are a guide. I need you guys to put on your headphones so that we can hear you. I don't know. I can't hear you, Prescott. I don't know, C.Allen, if you can hear him.
No, I can't.
Okay, Prescott. Neither of us can hear you. So you need to.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. I need you guys to put on your headphones if possible, your earphones if possible, please, for better audio quality. So, gentlemen, welcome to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift.
Thank you.
Yes, welcome.
So let's talk about Mangrove Key. This has been quite a bit in the news in recent months because we all know that people have been after what many consider to be prime property in Andros. Some say it's prime property because of the natural resources that are there. And some are arguing that these natural resources should not be limited to just a select few, but should be, benefiting all Bahamians. And there are others who are looking beyond what's on the surface and saying, maybe there's another prize involved here. So I want to begin this show by looking at the obvious, aggregate mining. Tell us, from your perspective, what you see as the benefits that could be derived as well as I would say the pros and the cons as it relates to aggregate mining in that area. Prescott, let's start with you.
Well, first of all, Michelle, I want to thank you for having such a show to educate the country on this important issue. The whole issue of aggregate mining, what they're really looking for, the specific one would be limestone. And of course, the largest freshwater lens being here on the island, it's one of the areas that they're targeting. And that is what's on the surface. But as you know, there's a lot more to that, because when you examine such a project for extracting the limestone, like Grand Bahama or any other place in the world, there's always a port these things have to move through. And so there's much more to this project than meets the eyes. Of course, we have the purest calcium carbonate in the world. And so that resource is used in so many things that we use in our daily lives, from cement, and you think of thousands of products, really, glass, and C.Allen being a tech who can tell you a whole range of things that the limestone is used for, you see. But I am very keen and excited about this show, because you're going to be exposing to the public so much more than meets the eyes. Yeah. Beyond the proposed site that they are bringing out to the public, the location where they want to mine. I've had a few of the special interests said that they are just looking to lease Morgan's Bluff for so many years and then turn it back over to the government or the Bahamian people. But even the amount of years they're looking at, again, 40, 50 years, we know that's, it's so much more to it than that. Yeah.
You have been one of the persons that they have been trying to woo. You are a resident of Andros, and as you are aware, there have been many public meetings as it relates to this project. What are some of the things that they have been saying to you to try to convince you to embrace this project?
Well, Michelle, I've had everything from death threats to bribes on this.
Wow.
So it's nothing new, and I'm not intimidated by such mindsets, because this is a global situation. C.Allen can tell you, we were in a room in Grand Bahama with the same extraction of limestone, and I remember my phone ringing and said, if I come Grand Bahama, I'm going to leave in a body bag. And so you're always going to have people who are going to push back at you because the amount of economics involved. And so my issue with this has always been, from way back, is where these resources are extracted, and most of all, how do they benefit the Bahamian citizens? And location is very important, so that, because you can use mineral resources and you don't have to do permanent damage to other things that are linked to it. So my number one issue is the exploitation of our people from all of these resources that are shipped out of our country for not just 50 or 60 years now. And then the mindset that wants to continue to do that and just give us some crumbs. And that's what I find is nothing short of treasonous and evil to me. Yes.
Okay. Let's go back to C.Allen. C.Allen, I want to get your view on the value of what is being proposed to be mined at this facility. What is the real value there?
let's first say this is not only about mining. This is about global commerce. This is also about. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you, and I know it's
Yes.
not just about mining, but I want to pace the
No,
show.
no, as I'm saying, okay, just so when you look at the mining, the mere fact is that you're sitting on a multi-billion-dollar value in what is called aragonite and calcium extracts that they're looking at. But you're also looking at the fact that this is true. If you look at the value of this extract, this is not ordinary extract. It's sitting on a water field, meaning that the precipitation that it became in that particular area has already rinsed and purified and cleaned this what they extend to extract. Now, we could get into the damage they're going to do. That's going to be worth billions of dollars of damages, but their concern is not $1 billion worth of damages, but more so concerning the value of the aragonite that they're taking out. What people have to understand is what aragonite is used for. You know, I've heard many people talk about it, but the use of aragonite, as we call it, calcium carbonate, calcite, or any variation of it, is the engine that drives the global economic growth for technology. And one of the greatest things that no one has talked about yet, and this is the first time you'll hear it in the Bahamas, is that Bill Gates himself, as recently with Oxford University and other universities around the world, has begun to embrace that aragonite is the solution for, get this, global warming. And he's investing billions in the use of aragonite to reflect the sun rays, to from spraying it in the sky, for neutralizing it in certain environments, for stopping the whitening of the sea. And what happens is that aragonite occurs all around the world, but there's something unique about the aragonite in the Bahamas. It's the mere fact that medical grade requires 92%. The aragonite in the Bahamas in its natural environment is 93% purity, free of chemicals and other additives and etc. So essentially, if you used to get aragonite, say, from another jurisdiction at 40% or whatever, you could spend tens of millions of dollars trying to get the quantity that you'd need corrected. Whereas you can take the aragonite in the Bahamas straight to its purpose use by simply refining it, whether it be dust or the quality, the grade of it. And so, but when you look at Andros has been tested and proven, and it has a host of qualities and free of impurities that makes it very unique, both on the field that they're trying to dig, as well as Morgan's Bluff, where they will try to clear to fulfill their goal. But this Morgan's Bluff, it's about 5 different reasons why you would consider Morgan's Bluff a multi-billion dollars, if not $1 trillion investment or capture over a few decades.
Now, you know, C.Allen, you like to throw these numbers, multi-billion dollar and $1 trillion and all this kind of stuff. And people are listening to you and they're probably thinking, oh, here he goes again. I'm coming up with these ridiculous figures that nobody can prove. How do we know that the figures that you are throwing out now are correct?
Well, here's the point. First of all, I know Bahamians have been broke for so long, they think even $1 billion is a lot of money. And $1 billion is nothing more than $1,000 million. Now, let's talk about, when you want to talk about value, Dr. Hubert Minnis for many years had denied that there was any value in aragonite or in anything else or anything of value in our country. And so if you want to look at the value, just look at the mere fact in one particular area, something called the Myers report says there's 150 billion long tons of aragonite in one particular area. And anyone who wants to have a copy or the area designate is right there by Ocean Key. And so when you look at the fact that if you just go into the air and Google, and if you want to look at just what is deposited in the Bahamas, well, you could very easily say we have over 1 trillion tons of aragonite in the Bahamas. So let's just put $1 on it. Let's put $5 at the value. And so if you put $5 at 1 trillion tons of aragonite, you had $5 trillion. That is not even the economic exploitative value of the aragonite. And so when you look at it in its proper context, it is. Let's use an example. The Bahamas is multi-million acres of land. The Prime Minister said, oh, I will just take $2 million from the Sovereign Wealth Fund with land and do airports. I mean, where did he just magically gain this number from? But let's use a simple figure. I invite people to take out their calculator, take 50,000 acres out of the multi-million acres that we have in the Bahamas, 2 million or more in the Prime Minister's office. 50,000 acres, prime beachfront property somewhere, times it by $300,000 for 1 acre on the beach in a prime location, and just simply you'll see you'll have $15 billion just from 50,000 acres from the multi-million of acres that we have in the Bahamas. If you want to see the value of our land, just simply go and try to buy an island for 30, 40, 50 million. That's 5 acres, 6 acres wide. And so the problem is that too often time we have taken the position that, you know, and this is why when you hear government talk about building a school or paving a road, they know they have put Bahamians in such a condition that they could come and say, we have spent $2 million today to get a projector for a classroom. And that to Bahamians like, wow, $2 million must be a lot of money, a whole lot of money. But even $1 million in the Bahamas, and this is where we have been put in a condition that we can't believe that we have the largest deposit of oil in the world, that we have the largest deposit of aragonite in the world. We're the third largest mangrove in the world. We're one of the world's largest area of flats. We're one of the largest area in the region for fresh water supply. We are essential as part of the air traffic control for the entire United States. We are an integral part of the shipping lanes for the global traffic. The global economic traffic would practically shut down without the Bahamas shipping lanes. See, so we have gotten to the point that, well, if we are so broke, we can't do whatever, where's all these values? But you would notice that the people who normally discount these values are never our members of parliament and our leaders sitting in the House of Assembly. So I would invite people to don't believe what C.Allen say. You support the Prime Minister, you support the opposition, whatever else. You should have your leaders make a statement that myself and others are saying to say simply put an end to this. And I would challenge anyone, any leadership in any position, any political party. They have the data. I have the data. Let's have a conversation. I call names. I said Hubert Alexander Minnis, who's the current Prime Minister, is sitting on almost $1 trillion of real estate. You could go and Google the blue economy and see what the World Economic Forum and other places designate the Bahamas in the blue economy in our fisheries, the third largest fishery, the third largest nursery in the world. Imagine the third largest nursery in the world where all of the fish in the world, these are nurseries where the fishing supply of the world is born. Are you going to believe that the world nursery is multi-hundreds of billions of dollars a year, and you continuously fish every single year for the last decades, for the next 20 years?
C.Allen,
yes.
We have a caller on the line. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, welcome to the show. Hello, caller. Caller, you still there? Okay, guys, we cannot hear the caller from our end, so I think we're going to continue to work on that. Let's get Prescott back into this conversation while we wait for the technical issues to be worked out as far as the caller is concerned. I'm just hoping we didn't miss the caller. So, Prescott, as someone who makes your living as a guide from the sea, do you really believe that, and we're going to get to, I know we call this show, I know the topic of the show really is about looking beyond the surface, and we're going to get to that in a moment, but I want to cover this first. I want to cover really whether or not we are not tapping into an opportunity that already exists beyond beyond going into this mining. But I'm being told we have a caller back on the line, so let's try the caller again. Caller, welcome to the Paradigm Shift.
Hello.
Hi, you're on GPS Global Paradigm Shift.
Hello. Michelle, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
It's Andrew Allen here.
Hi, Andrew. How are you?
Not bad. I would have liked to have been to come on the show. I'm a little occupied, but I had to call in because I just wanted to expand some of what you and I spoke about earlier regarding the port in Arawak Port to what's happening, what's proposed to be happening with Morgan's Bluff.
Okay, tell you what, I want you to stick a pin in that because I actually haven't played your clip as yet. But let me go ahead and play that clip now, and then we're going to get into the conversation about your views on this. I was actually going to go to the clip in the second segment of the show, which was going to be right after this break coming up. But what I wanted to do in the beginning and this first segment of the show is to look at the value of the material that is going to be mined, and then look beyond that. But since you're on the phone now, let's go to that clip. Clip number 1. This is a voice note from Andrew Allen that was posted in some chat group and went viral, and someone just sent it to me yesterday. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. And I tried to get him on the show for this morning, but he was obviously not available to be a guest on the show, but said he would call in. So let's go ahead and play that clip, and then we're going to get back to Mr. Allen on the phone.
I'm seeing young Bahamians who don't know the history, who don't know the history of this country. And so they see policies or initiatives or people, actors in isolation. And they don't see their actions and policies within a broad framework, the framework in which they belong. Suddenly you have somebody coming and telling you, oh yeah, we need to like Mr. Ingram with the port. Oh, we need to privatize the Arawak port to bring in the expertise and then get with it. And young Bahamians might be foolish enough into believing, oh, this is just the way the world's moving. You gotta privatization. We gotta move and let in the private sector do what the government couldn't do, and all the rest of these stupid lies that are peddled. And the same thing that's been happening in this country for 300 years, just dressed up in new clothes. All this is a removal of goods from the public domain into private hands and into the same private hands. And as for efficient, these guys are efficient at one thing, lining their own pockets. Does efficiency mean bringing down costs to the public? No, because it certainly isn't. We now have a monopoly on our port, and nobody seems to notice that. Nobody seems to notice what's been happening. We now have, you can't build another port to import goods into New Providence within 20 miles of Arawak Port. Well, Arawak Port is in the middle of a 21-mile long island. So you tell me, you'd have to be in the middle of the ocean to build another port, right? So they have a monopoly on the importation of everything you eat, all the cars you drive, everything they have a monopoly on, right? A small group of the same families, suddenly massively enriched. You wonder why Brent Simonet was worth what? $50 million in 2002 and $150 million today? Because of things that the FNM did and gifted him with. Well, after he's finished with the post office, how much do you think he's going to be worth, right? And yet the public has money draining from it, funds, investment, draining from the public, from the common good into select hands. And that is not an isolated act. That is part of an agenda and part of a historic movement and tendency that's always been here, that we have to always be fighting against. And you can't fight against history when you don't understand it. When you're just one little person here, another one there, somebody with a little stupid political ambition, another person with his agenda to get some money or something. When you're all atomized and not acting as a group with historic knowledge, you're helpless, absolutely helpless.
Okay, so let's put this all into perspective, because you may be watching this show and you're thinking, I thought we were talking about Morgan's Bluff and aggregate mining. What does that have to do with a port? Well, that's why I call the show, that's why I am focusing on hidden in plain sight, because the question being asked on the show today is, is the aggregate mining what they are really after, or is it that port that is the real prize?
It's about the port. It's about the port.
It's about the port. So go ahead and explain in detail, Mr. Allen, what you were saying.
I'm not one of these who's crazy about the whole natural resources thing. I mean, if anything, I don't down those who push it, and I think that their objectives are noble, and I think they're right insofar as this natural resources to be exploited should be done in a democratic fashion so it benefits all Bahamians. But I approach it from what's right here, right now. You know, how could we let what's right here, right now be squandered? You know what I mean? And we haven't exploited all of our natural resources, fair enough. I'm not sure that we ever would decide to do so as a country if we simply fairly allocated what we already have, because we're already a wealthy country. I mean, this idea that we have to go and find some new wealth is absurd. But the ports are a good example of how things are, the privatization of Arawak Port is a good example of how the country continues to misallocate the resources that it has by policies that concentrate wealth in the hands of a few, not just at the expense of the many, but the wealth that is generated by the many ends up being channeled into the hands of the few. And I do think the port is the ultimate objective. I think that is the important thing. The money is already, you know, it's not like going out and getting natural resources. We already have a huge domestic demand, right, for the importations of goods into the Bahamas, through Providence, to the point that the people, the merchants in Florida, you know, see it. They recognize New Providence as this little hub off their coast that is a monster importer, you know. And the port of Arawak Port sums up what I see happening with the port at Morgan's Bluff, which is that the government, operating on a make-believe premise, which is that the Bahamas government cannot afford to fund its infrastructure, which is it's a self-fulfilling made-up premise, right? Then moves to the next proposition, which is that we need to bring some sort of private public partnership to bear to take care of these basic infrastructural needs. And all that leads to is the public investment that's already taken place. That port is a gem, whether or not there's natural resources about it. The port of Morgan's Bluff, I've been told, and I'm in this business, it's unrivaled in the region in terms of logistical location, the depth of the harbor, just the overall fineness of that port, right? Proximity to New Providence, proximity to Florida. That port is something that was built by the government of the Bahamas, funded almost entirely by the population, but because we have a regressive tax structure, funded almost entirely by the poor of the Bahamas, now proposed to be essentially partnered in such a way that private interests will be profiting from it. And we, as you know, we're told that there'll be some efficiencies as a result. But where do they ever come? Where do the efficiencies ever lead to, for instance, a reduction in the cost of goods imported into the Bahamas? Never. Absolutely never.
I want to bring C.Allen and Prescott back in on this and keep you on the phone as long as you can stay with us, Mr. Allen. I want to read a post that was in response. What I do in the morning is I send out a general message to everyone saying what the show will be about. And in this particular chat, I sent out the message to say today on GPS, hidden in plain sight, you know, what are they really after in Morgan's Bluff? And someone responded this way: "This is so silly. A public dock surrounded by private land. None of the land is for sale, and not a single company or any significance has engaged with the Port Authority for use of the facility. In fact, this conversation should be about establishing a PPP or inviting a development group to upgrade that facility and let it compete with Nassau and Chub Key." Gentlemen, how do you respond to that particular person?
Typical. I mean, it's typical. It's This is the lie that's sold. This is the narrative that's sold over and over again. It's an F&M narrative. I'm not going to mince words. This is the narrative that, and both parties have picked up on it. This is a narrative that entered the Bahamian sort of political received wisdom with Mr. Ingram's government and has lingered about. That, again, look at the premise, right? Firstly, okay, this court's surrounded by private property. What does a government do when private property is required for a very important infrastructural or social objective? The government acquires that property, right? Secondly, there's this notion that what's needed is funds to come in from the outside. The funds have been spent. Bahamians have built that port, right? That is a fine port. It's sitting there, right? The idea that the government of the Bahamas, you know what kind of countries depend on PPPs? Countries don't have any money, right? The Bahamas isn't close to that category. That's what's so ridiculous. The Bahamas chooses that we're not going to tax. Okay, so let's say the Simonet Group comes in and moves it, as an example. I'm not sure if it comes in and becomes the Bahamas. The Simonet Group doesn't pay 1 penny corporate tax on hundreds of millions of dollars of income from Commonwealth Bank, right? From Hot Mix, not 1 penny. They don't pay 1 penny of tax. And the government not
Why?
1 penny of corporate tax. Of course not. We don't have corporate tax in the Bahamas. The Bahamas government chooses not to have money. Not just does it choose not to have money. No other independent country doesn't have income tax on the wealthy, right? No other independent country. Only little micro states like Cayman Islands and Turks and Caicos, well, they can do when you got 20 or 30,000 people, and they don't have a middle class, by the way, but no other country, no independent country has no income, has no aspect of progressive taxation. The Bahamas government, my father was Minister of Finance, as you might know, under the F&M government. And I've had many discussions with him way before that, and when he was in the central bank. The Bahamas collects 17% of its national wealth, 17% in taxes. The world average is 40%. The U.S. is hardly a socialist country. It goes between 38 and 43% since 1980. The Bahamas collects 17% of its national wealth in taxes and in revenues. And of that 17%, 80% is taxes on consumption, which disproportionately hits the poor. So the poor are going to build a dock, right? But the government claims they can't afford to run it, so it's going to give it to the rich who aren't even taxed to run it and make profits on it. That's the Bahamas today. And it's a lot simpler. These people come and they'll use these big words and they'll tell you, oh, this is what they do in Singapore and this and that. Simple. Just keep it simple. The Bahamas, the premise is wrong. The government has no shortage of money available to it. It chooses to retain a regressive tax system, in part because the people who benefit from a regressive tax system fund the party that has been in government for most of the years since 1992, and the other party hasn't woken up and smelled the coffee and doesn't see that it will always be at a disadvantage, and the shrinkage of our middle class and the failure of our economy to grow commensurate with the amount of money here. Tons of money here. Foreigners have there's tons of investment here. Tons, immense levels of investment, unheard of. Throughout that. Huh?
We have to take a break. See, Mr. Allen, I really hope you can stay on the line, and then I want to get C.Allen Johnson and Prescott in on this conversation as well, because I want people to understand if what you're saying is correct, and this is really all about the port, what does that mean as it relates to the economy of the Bahamas and how it will impact everyone in the country? Stay with us. This is GPS, Global Paradigm Shift. We're going to continue with this riveting conversation on the other side.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Longevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
For all your building needs, it's Carib Construction and Project Management on Gladstone Road. We build it all: schools, homes, hotels, and more, including structures requiring a Phase 3 electrical contractor. We also provide project management services. The first step towards your dream building begins at Carib Construction and Project Management. Call us at 376-1556 or 341-4466. At Lee Air, safety is our #1 priority. Flying since 1996, we offer scheduled flights into Fresh Creek and Mangrove Key Andros and Great Harbor Key, Berry Island, twice daily, 7 days a week. Affordable charter services are also available to anywhere in the Bahamas and the Caribbean. Lee Air Charter Services. Call 225-3267, 702-7127, or 322-1317 for reservations.
The Catwalk Boutique helps you step out in style, offering a high-fashion, elegant line of ladies' clothing from petite to plus sizes, from chic casual to dazzling evening wear. Come and visit us in our newly renovated boutique in the Hellron Plaza, Robinson Road. We're also the leading distributors for wholesale and retail on Hetty's pantyhose, as well as wholesale beauty supplies, also offering services to the Family Islands. Call us today at 394-6116 or come and visit us in the Hellron Plaza, Robinson Road, the Catwalk Boutique, where sophistication begins.
Welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm, today chatting with C.Allen Johnson, Prescott Smith, and hopefully still on the phone, Andrew Allen. And we're talking about, the topic of the show is hidden in plain sight. What are they really after in Morgan's Bluff? Now, here's the deal. Before the break, and if you haven't already done so, like and share the show, because people need to hear this information. Y'all like and share the show, Here's the deal. Well, actually, let me go to a couple of Facebook messages first, and then we're going to get back into the conversation. Glenn P. Rolls says, yet some say we are broke. Value. Thanks, C.Allen. Paradigm shift needed indeed. Ian Smith says, the brother has some valid points, but the World Economic Forum was established by what I call a modern-day Satanist. One Mr. Schwab. These are very same people behind the pandemic. All right, let's go down a bit. Glenn P. Roll, this is so wrong. This is so evil. Policy that drains the public purse. Andrew Allen. Let's see. Cordero Seymour says he's correct, but cool with the shade. All of y'all need to work together because all have the same message. Okay. And finally, Delphine Thompson says that's the problem with Bahamians. They would never come together for the common goal. Time to stop hating one another and become the greatness team. I guess you mean team in the history of the Bahamas. Okay, so let's get back to the conversation with regard to this port. If you gentlemen are correct in that the port is the real prize in Morgan's Bluff, at Morgan's Bluff. Economy of the Bahamas. Why is this portion? C.Allen?
Well, yeah, let me just first deal with some issues on the part. Mr. Allen said that about natural resources. The majority of the ports in the Bahamas are part of a natural archipelago type environment. They are or should be listed as one of the natural resources. When I came back home almost 20 years ago, and I went to an open show on Business Outlook where they were talking about the development of Eleuthera and Mayaguana. In fact, when I got up in the meeting and contested the fact that the person was representing that Mayaguana was a backward, dirty water type environment, I got up in that meeting and says, no, you absolutely incorrect. Mayaguana was a naval and Air Force staging post for the United States government in its confrontation of Cuba during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And it had one of the longest airport, and still does one of the longest airport in the Caribbean, as well as one of the deepest harbor there is. That not only contains certain materials, that nuclear submarines and everything else was planted there. And that is when I began to realize that there's some things that's going on. And I've always been an advocate about on ownership of the harbors. And the major harbors in the Bahamas that has been targeted going back 20 years that I am aware of in my return home has been Mayaguana, has been Abaco, has been Grand Bahama, and Andros, as well as the one in New Providence. Now, I have no issue with Mr. Allen said, except that the argument becomes one of consumption as opposed to economic growth and development. Yes, the cost is exorbitant, but the whole concept is that how does these ports fit into something that's greater? Let's go to the Andros port. There's a concept in global shipping for post-Panama ship. That port happens to sit in one of the deepest natural harbors in the world, almost a mile deep. The post-Panamax ship is essentially what was coming into Grand Bahama. The ship is too big to go through the Panama Canal, so what they do is they bring these mega ships into Grand Bahama, offload them into smaller ships that can fit into the chutes of the Panama Canal or into the harbors of the United States, and they break down these cargoes. The Morgan's Bluff harbor, sitting at the mouth of one of the deepest harbors in the world. You would never find a ship that goes 1 mile deep. Then makes it an ideal place for us. The new globalization context begins to accelerate. It becomes a this is when you start talking about the billions and billions of dollars in exchanging of goods. You know, we know for a fact based by the WTO that over $3 trillion worth of commerce happens within the Bahamas. Well, that $3 trillion worth of commerce is within the shipping lane, which individuals such as Brent Simonet and the associate group of individuals in the country, so we know them from the Moras and other people who for decades, almost the entire Bahamas history has been in the shipping business. And these are who forms these conglomerates of ownership of these ports. So the capture of these ports within the Bahamas it's greater than the consumption of the Bahamian public of goods and services. Basically, capturing those smaller ports like New Providence create a strategy of suppression, because what it does, it locks out Bahamians out of the shipping industry, where 80 or 90%, I'd be 80% at least, of the world's cargo, the world's commerce happens on the seas. And we are a seafaring nature. So it is one of deliberate oppression in respect to that. But when you go back to the Morgan's Bluff environment, the dynamics has even changed over the last 20 years. So you have the access to the aragonite. If you look at the Morgan's Bluff attempt by the Chinese individuals that came there, the Chinese investor, look at the area they're trying to encompass. And so the Morgan's Bluff is just more than just a simple harbor for commerce of consumption within the Bahamian public. It is actually for an asset, a tool in global commerce. And so just go and look in November 3rd, I think, of the Nassau Guardian was the WTO document published by our government that lists the $3 trillion worth of traffic that happens through here. So what happens is if you are able to capture that, in fact, I can show with unrefutable proof in the agreement of the Oban deal. I think it's page 27. The Oban deal was about capturing the Freeport Harbor more so than it was about building an oil refinery. These are all linguistic gymnastics and contortionism that they allow, bring into the public domain, get their domains to push and advocate and fight for. I agree with Mr. Allen with the fact that the Bahamas does not lack money. Our strategic location and the value of our land, as I explained to you, is in the value of the billions of dollars. Just use an example. Go to the hotel, I think that's what we call it out west, Bahama. Bahama came about based on built on the assets of over $1 billion of crown land and other assets that we give them that they incorporated. Oftentimes we get from bamboozled with this concept is that we're building a $4 billion this and whatever. But let's look at the actual construction. The construction was a little over $2 billion. So that means the Bahamian people put in almost 40 to 50% of the value in building that, yet we don't own anything of it. And so and this is why I'm a very strong advocate of this thing called a sovereign wealth fund. I'm just interject this here. My idea of a sovereign wealth fund is to put all assets of the Bahamas government, of the Bahamian people, known and unknown, tangible and intangible, into a sovereign wealth fund. Then we can hire sovereign asset management people, the same people that these individuals go to exploit the value for us. And so it immediately moves the level of corruption that sits within the House of Assembly more so in the cabinet, because there'll be nothing of value to give away, to package, to resell for family, friends, lovers, finances, or whoever it is that in that particular environment. Now let's come back to Morgan's Bluff. When you begin to look at the fact that Morgan's Bluff and the billions of tons of aragonite that also sits right off that area, and you saw that in the capture notice that the Seminet's original proposal, or the Chinese original proposal, which included the same Seminet grandnephew or whatever his relationship is to them, now it is you notice that the argument has been modified to now include this well field. But it is just a matter of saying, ask big and get what we really want. So you come with this ridiculous idea to give us 500,000 acres, knowing that we reject it. So it becomes more reasonable when you say, well, since the 500,000 acres, which was in the 90s rated by the United Nations that having a value of $50 billion, that exact same 500,000 acres had a value in the 90s as United Nations when it was listed as part of the Eden Project of $50 billion. And that is before we knew the value of technology and all of the other assets that sits here. The Morgan's Bluff also area, just finish this point, the Morgan's Bluff area where the Chinese individuals was coming in, the same aragonite that is there in the Morgan's Bluff area is also, it has a high concentration of magnesium or something else of that sort that allows them to be used in solar batteries. And so the problem is that we have just not been educated as to what is it that we have within our country. And I've documented maybe between 80 and 90 natural resources. And each one of them has its own value that we need to have a discussion on.
Let's hear from Prescott. We haven't heard from him in a while.
Yes,
Prescott, let's get you in on this conversation now.
Well, first of all, I appreciate the education Alan is speaking of, but I can tell you, while a lot of the information is factual, we have to address this whole issue of how this particular port impacts the daily lives of our citizens and generations unborn. Andrew Allen explained this the best I've ever heard, bringing it right home to Bahamians what this is really all about. Okay? This always, the issue for me with natural resources never excluded these ports. Morgan's Bluff was always front and center. And Mr. Allen brought it very clear where Bahamians would know the history of Arawak Key, where there were 5 clearing places in Nassau, and they locked up the monopoly, which drove the cost of living. And what it means is that you end up where even the exclusive distributorships are all locked into the same families. So the capture of Morgan's Bluff Port, it means that 10, 20 generations unborn they will end up continuing to control this economy if
Yes.
they capture Morgan's Bluff Port.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here is what ties into Allen's about the value. It's not just a few $1 trillion. It's not an exaggeration, because if you capture Morgan's Bluff Port, you capture the island with almost 50% of the land for the Bahamas. You capture the island with the largest pine forests, the largest freshwater lands, the largest nursery system for marine life, the largest corpus, the largest flats, and you can go on and on about the resources. Everything moves through the port, either seaport or airport. And so when I heard Andrew's voice note, it was very moving for me because he brought it right down to earth. Let's get right to the meat of it. No matter what they come in here to want to mine, whether they want to cut the pine forest, everything has to move to the port. And this particular port, once they capture this,
That's it.
Any chance for Bahamians to have economic independence, you would have lost it. And so, so the smoke screens, we can talk about the trillions, what the nursery is worth. All of that means that it still has to pass through them.
Mm-hmm.
You're shipping out lobster, you're shipping out the snappers, you're shipping out the pine trees, you're shipping out the limestone, the agricultural project with Bamsies. It doesn't matter. The same families, and it means that 70% of the population that lives in Nassau, which the decision that was made with Arawak Key, it's like you put the majority of our citizens, you lock them into this prison. That's what happened. So the mothers pushing the trolleys and Super Value or whatever the food stores is, everything comes through that port. Now they recognize that the threat that can balance it is Morgan's Bluff.
There you go.
Okay.
Mr. Allen, are you still on the line?
Yep, that is very true. You hit the nail on. They recognize that Morgan's Bluff is the one thing that could liberate Nassau from what was done at Arawak.
Yeah.
That's
so.
it.
There are some who will argue, well, I don't know why y'all making noise, because the people who have the money are the ones who should be allowed to do this thing. How do you counter that?
It's foolishness. Let me first briefly. See, that's, and I appreciate Alan's pointing out all of these resources. Once you know the value of what you have, getting capital is not an issue, because we have the natural wealth. So anyone who tries to leverage that, oh, the people who have the money, all the money they have is because they have been stealing from the Bahamian people, as Andrew Allen pointed out, for generations. They're criminals, because the public don't know that they own the sand industry that came to Malcolm Park before Hubert Ingram turned it over. The public don't know that these families were extracting the pine out of Andros for 27 years, out of Grand Bahama, out of Abaco. So all of the wealth comes from the natural resources. And what Alan is advocating for, and Andrew from the Sovereign Wealth Fund, it means that we had a fair system. It means that you would not just have a few greedy, corrupt interests with all of this wealth. Literally, if all of them were lined up listening to me, they are nothing but outright thieves. Because if you do the research from the land, how they got thousands of acres for $1 here, if you do the backdoor deals from Owens of Illinois and all of these other companies extracting our resources, you would trace right back to how these families obtained their wealth. They did it from stealing from the majority of our citizens. And as Andrew Allen pointed out, if you don't have a fair tax system where you can have billions in Switzerland or in the Cayman Islands, but you pay no real tax, but we brag and look at them as role models, they are no role models, because most people don't know how they obtain their wealth. They're doing it from stealing from the public, and a lot of it is hidden and in all these shady contracts, and then we look at them as being successful. You see?
Oh boy,
Prescott, you're very right. I've got to head out, Michelle. But I would just like to say that I agree with both these gentlemen are saying, and I would just add, and to echo what Prescott just said. You know, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy when you say, well, these are the people with the money, so give it to them. The question is, why are they the people with the money? Why does our country keep perpetuating the same imbalance, right? Because of a regressive tax system, and because the government, which is the agents of the people of the Bahamas, and the people of the Bahamas generate a huge amount of money that enrich some of these same people you're talking about, right? That the government has not done its job in ensuring that that there is a fair balance of opportunity and money. If you go and say, oh, everybody can buy shares like Mr. Ingram did in our report, and therefore there's the justification for it, who can afford to buy shares in this economy? Who has, when they've hit you with 12% VAT, constantly rising prices, and a lower minimum wage in the U.S., which is a cheaper country, who's supposed to have money in their pocket to buy shares? And so it's the historical and infrastructural framework that keeps perpetuating the same outcomes. You know, they have the money, so then let them do something that's going to cause them to have even more money relative to the general population. No, let the government value what it has done as an agent of the people already, to have dug that port and what it owns and the value of what it owns, right? To build and steward. Morgan's Bluff can be run. Government can bring in anybody to run it, but to go into a partnership with the very people who have benefited from those things that we've just discussed, and allow them to benefit further from the exploitation of a very, that port isn't just a port for the people of the Bahamas, you know. I mean, should benefit the people of the Bahamas, but that's an international, that is capable of being the international entrepot between the United States and the further Caribbean region. So
that's
this is
the point that C.Allen was making. Yeah.
This could be bigger than Freeport, right? So I would just like to leave with that. I'm happy that people like two guests you have on, both of whom I've listened to and I respect.
Before you leave, Alan, I just want you to let me explain to you what they did with the Iraq port for financing. They didn't use their money. What they did was the government of the Bahamas lent them the money. Now let me tell you how it was lent. What the government of the Bahamas did was said they was going to let all of these 40,000 public service people buy shares. They didn't have the money. So guess what? The government advanced them the $500, times that by the thousands and tens of thousands of people. The government, this was their fancy way of the government financing this for them. The government advanced the people the shares. They bought shares, raising the tens of millions of dollars for them to acquire and get the port. Then, knowing these individuals are broke, in the short period of time, they said, hey, let me buy those shares back from you for $550, $600, so you made an instant $100 in less than a year. Next thing you know, guess what? They own not only the preferred shares, but they also own all of the common shares, which was nothing but a sleight of hand that Hubert Alexander Ingram used to have the government finance that port. And so there is no lack of creative financing, and Andrew is correct, because if you get a sovereign asset management company, I mean, you have people around the world who would fight to manage that port for the benefits of Bahamians, both locally within the economy and globally. And so the question is, we're not asking for an assessment of what the port has its worth. We're letting the people tell us what our property is worth. And we have surrogates within the public domain who will push the narrative that you're too broke to own anything, when tens of billions of dollars has been made on the back of Bahamians for well over 100 years by less than 12 families in this country.
We got to take a break, gentlemen. Mr. Andrew Allen, thank you so much for, first of all, allowing me to use your voice note that went viral, and secondly, for calling into the show. Man, this thing is so deep, y'all. This is really all about systems that have enabled the continuation of privilege, power, and greed.
And national backwardness, because it holds the whole country back. And if even those recipients of this privilege were a little more open-minded and forward-thinking, they would realize that they themselves would benefit from a country that was overall more progressive. I mean, I can tell you that there were many people after the PLP came to power in '67, and even earlier than that, when the general strike of 58, 59. And these things had the effect of increasing the money in the hands of the average person on the street. You know who some of the prime beneficiaries of that were? The same people you call the oligarchs and all the rest. They benefited because when the man on the street does better, the whole country rises.
Yeah.
The bottom of the pyramid has more disposable wealth, and the smarter among them know that, right? And so I'll leave you with that point. But it's been enjoyable, and please keep this up. And both your guests, again, I congratulate them on keeping these things in the public domain.
Thanks so much, Mr. Allen. All right, we're going to continue this conversation on the other side of the break. Stay with us. This is GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM.
Boy, here calamity. Boy, don't want that be me. Let me get this coverage, do it once and for all. Insurance management is who I gonna call.
When calamity strikes, we're here to keep you safe and secure. With offices in Nassau, Freeport, Albuquerque, Luther, and Exuma. Insurance management, we cover the Bahamas.
Looking for an extraordinary junior high school with caring, qualified staff and affordable tuition? Then come visit us at Elite School of Excellence, an affiliate of First Step Academy. ABECA-focused and Ministry of Education approved, we foster discipline, integrity, and wisdom while molding our students for success. Call us at 341-8846 or stop by First Step Academy Schools on Fire Trail and Soldi Roads for more information.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 Hyperimmune Egg Powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Ocean blue is the best in seafood, hey, hey. Fresh out the water and affordable too, yeah. We got fish, conch, lobster, shrimp, everything you want. Ocean blue got it. Ocean blue, friendly and clean, best service you ever seen. Ocean blue is the best in seafood, yeah. Fresh out the water and affordable too, yeah. Ocean blue seafood, we are here for you. Ocean blue seafood, no one else will do. Ocean Blue Seafood, located on Burnett Road. Contact us at 393-2160.
Welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm. We are streaming live on Facebook. Thanks to all of you who have joined in via Facebook to watch the show streaming live. If you haven't already done so, like and share this show. Like and share this show because people need to know what's going on in this little Bahama land. I want to throw out the telephone numbers that you can call in or text line. Our text line is 828-2543, 828-2543. And the call line is 828-3543. 828-3543 is the call line. Let's go to a couple of the Facebook messages now. before we get C.Allen Johnson and Prescott Smith back in on the conversation. Felicia Delancey says, yes, this knowledge is powerful. She also says, yes, Prescott, you are 100% correct. Let's see. Boy, there's a lot of messages. Ashley Alexis says they got wealthy from exploiting our resources. Raquel Edwards, treasonous, darn criminals, plain wicked. Boy, I tell you, Regina R. Roll Colbert says Bahamians need to join the Natural Resources Foundation. Caroline King, wow, now that this is exposed, will efforts be made to return the wealth to the Bahamas? Retribution must be a part of the solution then. And Anne-Marie Albury says, policies and legislation needs to be enacted to ensure that Bahamian ownership reigns. What do I mean? Nothing. No foreign investment should have majority ownership by foreign investors. They must go into business with Bahamians and 51% ownership or more. And one more from Ashley Alexis. The sand industry was controlled by us Bahamians. The F&M privatized the industry and blocked the average Bahamian out. Lots and lots and lots of comments today on Facebook. Keep them coming. We have a caller on the line. Caller, welcome to GPS Global Paradigm Shift.
Hello.
Hi, you're on the air.
Oh, thank you very much for taking my call. But I also wanted to ask your guest, and good afternoon to everybody. What do you think about adding to the conversation education of Bahamian students? We talked about, you guys talked about what the natural resources and the port and all of that. But what about financial education? Because I think that is a part of this dynamic where, let's keep the people barefooting down. Can you imagine if Bahamians had the opportunity to truly understand the value of the dollar that is put before them?
Yes.
I think it's one of the part of why is that something that's not being taught to our students, education about the value of a dollar, money, and what the power that it holds for us.
Well, I will let the guest answer, but I dare say that that's intentional. Why should I empower you with education? Because when you're empowered, then you're going to come after me in my position, quite frankly. But let me let my guest respond to that.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree that it is deliberate, and it actually began in the 80s when they shift the educational system, because believe it or not, at one time, and this is how I ended up in the United States, even at a company such as IBM in the 80s when they were developing the PC, was that they actually used to come to the Bahamas and farm intelligentsia from the Bahamas. And so a deliberate shift when they began to see that a class of Bahamians were excellent learners and they were aggressively going around the world and making conquests. So they created an environment for us not to return. It's almost like if you watch the oligarchs of the cave, the oligarchy of the cave, is they wanted to make sure the cave was in a place that we would not come back to influence the people. But here's the thing about education. One of the most powerful things is that when you empower people, they will demand better education. They will demand better environment. They will demand learning about what it is they possess. And so, yes, it was a double play of keeping them down and separated from the information. And this is why, for me, the immediate capture of the assets in the Bahamas into a sovereign wealth fund, then they would become interested in understanding where does this value come from when you begin to document, let's say, the 100 different resources we have that's worth in the billions and trillions of dollars, because it becomes theirs and their custodian. They will have more time as they're trying to eke out a living. They will have more time to study that which they live in an immersive environment, the pool of wealth and economic empowerment. But let me just answer a question concerning what we said about what has been taken away from us. I am of the Melchizedek mindset. A lot of it, not a lot of activists and patriots believe that we should protect what's ours. I'm in Melchizedek mindset. I also believe that we should go and get what was taken. And the mere fact that if you look at our Constitution, no administration can bind future administrations. So this whole idea that we can't do nothing is a lie. Every contract that we have signed that I've examined, had the opportunity to get my hands on and heads of agreement, in spite of the penalties, there are means to break them. And the penalties are minuscule as in regards to the value. But this comes back to, again, where Bahamians are taught that $100 million is a huge penalty. There's a $500 million penalty, if I understand right, on the oil contract that we're about to go drill. So you go, and this is what they tell you. Who's going to pay the $500 million? And I say very easily, pay it from the first $1 billion that we extract from the ground. We'll pay it. Let's use BTC as an example. The 49 or 51%, depending on who's counting, that they said that the $100 million penalty was there. If we had went and looked back at that, we would have seen that in the bank account was the $100 million that could have paid the penalty. But secondly, within that whole aspect, we saw later the same set of assets was sold for $1.5 billion.
And
so
now they're trying to do the same thing with the what you call
electricity
it?
These are all, see, this is where we have shows like yours begins to bring the education, because what they don't tell you is they're going to try to spend hundreds of $millions in loans when you could Google and see that it takes less than $350 million to solarize New Providence, but that you could pay for it within just what we spent on oil. But here's the reason. The Bahamas economy is built on a consumption-based economy, and our current leadership does not have what it takes for the new reality that we exist in, because they depend on us to consume carbon tax. In fact, that's killing us. And so when you consume electricity, when you consume from shipping, when you consume everything, these are carbon tax for which the government gets their things. But the Bahamas value is from the green economy and the blue economy, which is a carbon neutral environment that the world is seeking. And so the problem is we can't get conversation in context because they also control the media. And I saw where Ashley said that, oh, they took the sun.
Not anymore, they don't.
No, as I'm saying, but there you go. But here's what Ashley said, they took the sun. Here's what happens. They've always had control of the sand industry because they had the value and access. What happens was during that particular time, digitization began to happen and sand became very valuable in that whole
but I'm talking about when you said they control the media. But
I know for that media, right? But I'm just saying that's just to put some factual things in there.
I need you to wrap it up though, because Prescott is trying to get in here. Okay.
Right. What England did was he passed a law saying to preserve the beaches, when in reality it was to stop you from entering the industry once you become aware of what you are capable of doing. So there's some nuances in everything that is done, but I just want people to know any leadership who told you they could not do anything or cannot do anything don't deserve the lead.
Let's go back to Prescott Smith now. Prescott, what I know you've been itching to get in here. I see you raising your hand.
Yes, because the lady asked a specific question, and I want to answer her based on, I was appointed by the Cabinet of the Bahamas to sit on the Council of the Bahamas National Trust, right? We have to get to the root of our people and not divide them along these political lines, because that's the game they have played with us. So I specifically want to answer her question so the lady knows, as Alan pointed out, and yourself, it is not by accident we are miseducated, okay? So because I was the only person who has been independent, who was appointed by the cabinet, because back then the politicians knew, and these families, that I couldn't cut no deal with me, no matter the amount of money they offered me. All of these things came at me. I was thrown at the Council of the Bahamas National Trust, where the families who control this economy. And so if you look and see when it was established in 1959, when the Quieting Title Act of stealing our land was established in 1959, there is no accident that we were moving to political independence in 73, majority rule in 67. And so every time I brought up the issue about our wealth, they blocked it every step of the way. And one of the oligarchs was brazen enough to share with one of my clients that if you educate the masses, they will know the value of the land. So all of the research in our country conducted by scientists from all over the world, whether they're geologists, and so they knew the wealth of this country. They just don't want the majority to know the wealth of the country. And so she is absolutely right. And I just wanted her to know, and it's very important to state this, because before anyone spoke about natural resources in this country, notice Allen, and I learned so much from him. He said he came back in the Bahamas 20 years plus ago. For 30 years of my life, I brought this issue about resources in the country before any citizen. And I didn't bring it for it to be all muddied up and various agendas. It was simply, as Alan pointed out, it was about the empowerment of Bahamians. And why it's important for me to say this and say this publicly. I dealt with Hubert Ingram. I dealt with Perry Christie, the present Prime Minister. If he was listening, he called me, I didn't, spoke with him on the phone about the same families when he was in a battle for his political life. Why it's important to say this is our people are divided along these PLP F&M lines. But really, these families are behind the scenes, beyond these parties, okay? And so, as Andrew Allen pointed out, I only look at policies. This model goes way back. And so if you look at 1992, what policies came into place? The lifting of the Immovable Property Act. They have been stripping away ownership from the Bahamian citizens from way back then to now. And I blame Mr. Christie because while a lot of the policies he did not allow to be enacted, when he became Prime Minister, he didn't reverse what Hubert Ingram allowed to take place under the influence of these families. So it's important to say this so that our people are not divided with this PLP F&M, because you need to know who the real enemies are. I dealt with the prime ministers and I dealt with the oligarchs who control the politicians. And so once you recognize that you have now found the beehive, and the beehive in this case is about your natural resources, whether it be your port and all of these various things benefiting the citizens, do not be distracted on the PLP F&M DNA issue. You either are going to implement these things to truly empower our citizens, and knowing who the real culprits are, it's the same people who came after you, Michelle. Because if you didn't touch the real wealth of the country, you have no opposition.
Agreed. And that political polarization is what they have successfully used for generations to keep the masses down. And I honestly don't know what it's going to take for people to wake up and realize you being played like a fiddle. You're being played. And you allowing these people to do it to you again and again and again. And then you wake up and you wonder, why are we moving no forward? And what? Come on, people, wake up.
Well, Michelle, I can speak to it. That's why I say Bahamians who are listening. You know, I always share with Alan and any others who I've learned a lot from. But I sat in a unique position because most Bahamians don't know. I went to cabinet over 17 years ago and did a 4.5-hour presentation showing the wealth. Why didn't Mr. Christie allow it to be shared with the public? I was blocked by the Hollow Wescos and the Simonets and the McKinneys for 10 years before that. So if you do the math on that, that's 18 plus 10 is 28 years. So what I became aware of was that our issue wasn't just at this PLP F&M DNA level, that these oligarchs fund our elections, and as long as you maintain the structures that allow them to continue to control the mean areas of the economy, then we get caught up in who gets the crumbs from the bus contract and the government appointment and this politician pretending that they're doing this and doing that for you. Whereas the real bulk goes in the hands of the same few who they ensure. And I can say this publicly. I had Mr. Christie on the phone with the CEO of Procter & Gamble, the CEO of Dial, when they were fighting these families with Clifton Pier. Persons came to my lodge who the three prime ministers can't even get an appointment to see them. So my phone rings for them to hook up with Henry Paulson, who's on the $10 US currency. And that's why I can tell you how these families operate. And so at the end of the day, they want us divided, fighting each other about PLP and F&M, whereas they're behind the scenes. And the CEO said to me, he said, Prescott, he said, if you are a distributor in Texas, you do not control Georgia. C.Allen does not control Florida if he brings in joy, but in the Bahamas, the same distributors control the port. So what will happen if you allow them to take the port with most of the land and most of the resources in the country? It means that when will be locked up.
Everything would be on lock. It's on lock.
Yes.
And that is what this is all about, people.
That's what it's about.
That's what this is all about. And I'm not saying that the natural resources don't have value. Of course they have value. You've heard it on this show, and that's why I specifically wanted to start with that. Yes, there is value in the natural resources, but for these people, the real value is that port. Because once they lock that down, it's over. Dog eat your lunch. They will have this economy further unlocked than they have it right now. And it's already unlocked because of what was allowed to happen here in New Providence with the port here in New Providence. But if they lock down Andros, forget about it. Forget about it. And that is what this is all about. And in case y'all haven't realized it, the economy of the Bahamas has been decimated. COVID-19, prior to that, Dorian and what it did to Abaco and Grand Bahama. So, but I want you to notice one thing. The economy has been decimated. The middle class pretty much wiped out. People living in their cars, people suffering, people standing on lines for an hour for $50, $20, whatever. People are suffering in this country. But certain people ain't lost nothing.
No.
Michelle, you're correct in that.
Huh?
Michelle, you're correct in the sense that if you examine the GDP of the report from the central bank, you'll notice that in spite of almost 70% or 80% of the population being unemployed almost for the last year, you would notice that the GDP did not have the level of shrinkage that you would expect from 80% of the population going away. So it begins to tell you that the 80% of the population has always been living on 30% of the income of the Bahamas, and somebody else must be making that 70%. Numbers
Exactly.
don't lie.
Exactly.
And so, but Prescott, I invite you to do your presentation that you did in cabinet. Do it in the public. You now have the resources that is left. But I could tell you, Michelle, for almost 40 years, I've worked with people I won't mention right now. And even when I came home up until March 3rd of 2019, I've had a non-disclosure, non-legal obligation. Yet I continue to sought to arm the rebels, so to speak. But from my position of working with some of the most powerful organization, institutions, and alphabets of the world, you would find that we have always known the value of the Bahamas. And this is why when I basically at the age of 40, basically exceeded the timeline that is allowed for participation, I came home. But it came home with certain restrictions because of the intelligentsia that I possess. And I had a curse of remembering stuff that normally other people would have to carry the computer with them. Well, my mind was conditioned to become that computer. And so I understand what the report says concerning what they said. If you actually go to the WikiLeaks that first came out, it says there's two things that to control the Bahamian public is PR, just use PR. And they wasn't talking about public relations. They said just insert politics or religion, and we would become animals in defending our position. And so they've used politics and religion, and the oligarchs have took control of the political class, as well as prostituted, and no disrespect, but moved many of our pastors into the positions of pulpit pimps, where they themselves must become survivors. And so what we end up having is we send We send political prostitutes to parliament, pulpit pimps in the altars, to which to oppress the people as the people move away with the wealth. And so the key to that now is for us to wake up and realize that we are the people. Without the Bahamians, without the population, there would be no designation as the word Bahamas. It would be deserted islands, deserted keys. And so when we begin to understand the most valuable wealth in this country is us and the future generations of Bahamians, and that we begin to move and demand accountability, and the most direct way for that, including Morgan's Bluff, which is, and again, I want people to understand, just imagine that 80% of all the global traffic to the East Coast, of the consumption of America in the trillions of dollars, and that 80% or maybe more of all traffic going to the East Coast of the United States and through the Panama Canal to the West Coast of the United States, leaving the United States to go to Europe and the other places and the Caribbean, all passing through Morgan's Bluff. We are talking about moving from a $3 trillion hidden economy to maybe 30, 40, 50 trillion. COVID has created an environment where you see digitization and more ordering directly without personal contacts. And this is why, believe it or not, the post office, and we could do a show on this, the post office is the largest harbor in the world. We don't understand. The post office is a harbor in the world. And if you go back to Donald Trump, when he withdrew from WTO, he also threatened to withdraw from the global postal environment, which is also a port.
Okay.
So when you have a group of individuals control the postal service and all of your harbor, that ties into the United States, one of the largest consumers in the world, and the Caribbean, all of South America and the Caribbean, you then sit as one of the most powerful groups of families in the global economic commerce area.
On lock. Okay, I want to read a couple of Facebook comments. They've been piling up, and then we're going to take a break. Cordero Seymour says, Bahamians, if y'all don't wake up this time, the people explaining and giving y'all education, use your brain. Listen to these gentlemen and understand, all right? Let's see, Karen Davis says they are lending funds to make the wealthy richer and taxing the poor people and stealing from us. They need to be dealt with. Gina Mortimer Store, I'm still confused why every non-wealthy Bahamian is not supporting this effort and demanding the government address it. Let's see. Y'all talking about people getting thrown in jail. I'm saying that. Cordero Seymour a little later on says, no, I'm not going there. Okay. Philip Miller. Wow, ignorance is a serious thing, but thank God they can't fool all the people all the time. I would really love to see the Bahamas move away from both F&M, PLP, and give us a government that would take the excess from those thrive and return it back to the Bahamian treasury, but for God's sake, lock them up first. Well, you like to talk about locking up people now. Anyhow, all right, one more. Karen Davis says the wealth is the natural resources, so the people already have investment in being owners. All right, the messages are piling up. I'm going to try to get to as many of them as we can, but we have to take a commercial break, and then when we come back, we're going to head down the final stretch of the show. We're talking hidden in plain sight. What are they really after in Morgan's Bluff? Stay with us. This is GPS, your global paradigm shift.
Your body's immune system is under constant pressure from things like stress, lack of exercise, and toxins in the environment. It's crucial to be proactive and support your immune system with the nutrients it needs to function effectively. But it's often hard to get these nutrients from food alone. Introducing fast-acting Zinc Plus Immune Support by Longevity. Unlike zinc-only supplements, Zinc Plus Immune Support builds on the proven power of zinc and adds complementary nutrients to give your immune system extra support. Vitamin D helps balance the effects of zinc, while our proprietary blend of natural fruit and root extracts provides the extra help your immune system needs to work against daily stressors. And we've included Longevity's exclusive plant-derived minerals to give your body the minerals it needs, but can't get from food alone. And because Zinc Plus Immune Support is delivered in a great-tasting, sugar-free, berry-flavored lozenge, it encourages quicker absorption of all these nutrients into your body. Zinc Plus Immune Support zinc, plus the extra support your body needs to promote a healthy immune system. To learn more, contact your longevity associate.
Escape from the city life to Bacon Air Beach Resort in Piratesville, Mayaguana. Relax in one of 16 air-conditioned rooms just steps away from the ocean. Enjoy scrumptious dishes in our waterfront dining room. Sip on a tropical cocktail, or if you must, stay connected with wireless internet. Nestled on one of the most beautiful beaches in the Bahamas, Bacon Air Beach Resort offers a unique vacation experience. For reservations, call 339-3726 or 463-0182. Want to look your best and feel even better? Visit J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa for the ultimate beauty, body, and anti-aging treatments, offering custom colors, haircuts, vegan anti-freeze treatments, silk blowouts, natural and acrylic nails, unisex pedicures, facials, and massages, all waxing services, and microcurrent therapies for anti-aging and body sculpting. J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Madeira Street, telephone 326-7863.
Located on Carmichael Road, Divine Designs Hair Boutique is a haven for women and men looking for professional beauty services. Our state-of-the-art and contemporary equipment creates a relaxing ambiance for you to enjoy while we cater to you. Need a hairstylist? We cater to all types and textures of hair for care and styling. We even have a barber on duty. Need a nail tech? Our technicians provide a range of nail services, including the latest trends. Unwind in one of our massage chairs while you get your pedicure. With our reasonable rates, friendly staff, and over 20 years of experience, you will be in great hands. Call us at 823-1669 or 698-1025 to schedule your appointment. Want to be pampered? Want to be slayed? Let Divine Designs make your day.
Welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm, and my guests today are Prescott Smith and C.Allen Johnson, and we're talking hidden in plain sight. What are they really after in Morgan's Bluff? And much of the show, we've been talking about how, those natural resources there, the minerals that they want to mine, the aggregate mining is very valuable, yes, but the real value that some believe they're just trying to slip under your nose is that port. Because once they lock down that port, it's all over as it relates to having a lock on this Bahamian economy. And not just the Bahamian economy, but as C.Allen has pointed out throughout the show, you're now talking a global port that will be able to service the global trade between United States and our neighbors down south. And so this is a very, very important discussion that we're having today. And we'd like you to join in on the conversation. If you haven't already done so, please like and share the show. We've only got, about 21 minutes left, but like and share the show. We need this information to get out there. We need people to understand what is really going on here. I know your Facebook messages have been piling up, so let's go to a couple of them. Cordero Seymour says, C.Allen Johnson, thank you for the knowledge, bro. Thank you, Cordero, for tuning into the show today. Catherine Lewis says, I want y'all to know they hate that we are being knowledgeable. Yeah, they don't want you all educated, man, because when they keep you uninformed, then you happy in the condition you're in. You believe that's the best you can do. Gina Montemayor, exactly, Michelle, I'll say it again. An ignorant citizenry is how the powers that be oppressed, and sadly, it's a global phenomenon. So true, so true. Delphine Thompson, they are being exposed. I'm happy all the dirt is coming out. They are white-collar criminals, which they should be, I think you mean on trial for. Okay. And Gina Montemayor says, again, we need to check how wealthy foreign investors are living in these islands using the very natural resources Bahamians are being kept from. Anne-Marie Albury, Bahamians need to understand nationalism over politics. This is the stronghold on the mindsets of our people. And you know what, Anne-Marie Albury, I don't know what it's going to take to get people to wake up to that fact. Let's go back to the one you just had. Canon Young says, we have a chance to rewrite all this wrong by doing away with these political parties. Bahamian love evolution is the way, in my view. All right. Okay, gentlemen, let's bring you back in on this conversation. We've got 19 minutes left in the show. Solutions. What can we do? What should we be doing to ensure that we don't just stand by and allow ourselves to be raped again?
Go on, Mr. Allen.
Yeah, I invite individuals to reach out to me. I think one of the things that we have to do is we have to begin to organize for ownership. And what I mean by that, oftentimes we spend a lot of our time screaming at the ship. And when when you go back to, say, Central Grand Bahama or Angliston or wherever it is, you didn't send the PLP to Parliament. You didn't send the F&M to Parliament. You sent a member of Parliament. And if we begin to organize, we can actually take back at least 20 of these constituencies and have the members of Parliament begin to listen to us, so they begin to represent the views of what Bahamians have. And so, for instance, if the group of us in my Central Grand Bahama say these are the things we want and we want represented in the House of Assembly, if Mr. Iram Do Nothing Lewis was to come back to the Bahamian public and says to us that this is your position, we would be right there. We could confront him and unequivocally tell the public through a press conference that this man is a mistruth or liar, as we call it, because he did not speak to what we want. But when you begin to scream at the party or scream at Minutes or scream at Brave, you get to give all of them a pass. So what we have to do is we have to begin to take our country back, constituency by constituency, member of Parliament by member of Parliament. And so if you're tired of being a broke PLP, a broke F&M, while a select group of individuals have the wealth, then it's time for you to become a rich Bahamian. So get rid of being a broke PLP and a broke F&M and a broke DNA and whatever else you want to call yourself, and then become an empowered Bahamian by virtue of putting down your shield, your personality politics, your identity politics, and begin to embrace being a Bahamian and enjoy the wealth of the country. But then you ask, well, how do we solve this? The best way to isolate the abuse that has happened in our country, the Prime Minister now has adopted the position that a sovereign wealth fund is the way to go, not the garbage that has been given to us in the past. And I can assure you, not the garbage that he's proposing. If you want real consultation, let the members of Parliament begin to have what is a real sovereign fund is. And the way a sovereign wealth fund works is nothing to do with exploiting the assets. It is simply locking them down out of the way of abuse. And so what we have to do is basically move to ask that a sovereign wealth be established. Don't let them start talking about how you're going to spend money from a sovereign wealth fund. That's not how it works. They're confusing you and playing on your ignorance. Lock down everything in a sovereign wealth fund, all assets, known and unknown, tangible and intangible. Believe it or not, even the cancer in the Bahamas is worth billions of dollars. And so what happens is that you lock these away, and then we can begin to look for sovereign asset management companies, SAMs, to begin to exploit individually those assets that we have identified, such as aragonite, such as oil, and they'll tell us the best thing for us to do is to keep that park, such as the sand, such as the mangroves, such as the fisheries. And so each one of these become a separate thing that a sovereign asset management company does. They will exploit. Let me give you a brief of what a sovereign asset management. Michelle, if you used to play lottery tonight, I don't know if you do, but if you used to win $1 million, you would not take your $1 million and say carry it to an investment company, whether it be Sabas or Anthony Ferguson, and say, here's $1 million, give me back 15%. You'd say, here's my $1 million, see if you could expand the value of this, for which you get to take a percentage of the value you expand. You don't touch my $1 million.
I get that. I get that, C.Allen, but here's my challenge. What you're describing would be real if we were living in a utopia.
No, it's not.
No, let me explain what I mean by that. The reality is we have a competent authority who just extended his power by another 4 months. Remember, we talked about that on the other show.
Absolutely, yes.
Keep doing this and hold on to this control as long as he can for political purposes, right? what you just described is what we need to be done. But the reality is the people sitting in the seats of power ain't about to do that because it will benefit them.
Right,
so
but this is where Michelle is.
We as the citizens need to do to make sure this happens, because we could be sitting, we could be here talking from now till kingdom come about what, you know, it should happen this way, it should happen that way. But as long as these people sit in power who don't have any desire to do what you're describing, what then?
Because we are screaming at the competent authority, but the hierarchy of power has been, we've convinced the people that we've flipped the pyramid. For people who don't understand, the most powerful grouping of people in the country is you. And here's how it works. The competent authority now have control of cabinet and all the other structures of governance, but the people still reign supreme. Believe it or not, the Constitution still gives you the power. It may suspend it, but you could take it away. Power never concedes anything without a demand, but power never concedes to the demand of an emasculated constituent. We can't demand anything on our knees. And what I mean by that, every member of the Prime Minister and the competent authority has no power except given to him by Parliament. Parliament could take every single power that the competent authority possessed back from him in 10 minutes by giving notice. And so, in fact, Parliament could reject his proposal on this Wednesday to extend his competent authority and move the competent authority from one man, as in law, I don't care what he says, and move it to a group of individuals.
Parliament could, but Parliament won't. Parliament could, but Parliament won't.
Because, you know why? Because we haven't demanded of individual MP. Let's go and find your MP, and you say you're tired of the lockdowns. Ask your MP what is they going to say in Parliament, and guess what? It's very close to them getting their choices, but we can make some choices. So you find your MP and you say to him, I want it to end. And if there is to be a competent authority this Wednesday, tomorrow, I want it to be of a collective of individuals that understand medicine, that understands data, that understands economics, whatever. Not a house of family, not a house of parasites called family, friends, lovers, finances, and foreigners. And so, and the problem is, it requires 20 individuals to vote to extend that agreement on Wednesday, tomorrow. And so we have to begin to watch them, but we have to begin to demand of them that they do what we say, not what their party says. And when they fail to do what we say, I want them to understand they will never see inside of the House of Assembly, nor will we forgive them. And if they pass it tomorrow, we can demand at the next sitting that they take it back, because the power of the competent authority is in law given to him by Parliament and can be revoked by Parliament.
Okay.
And in fact, so that's as simple as it is.
Let's get Prescott in on this. Prescott, you are residing in Andros. You will be affected by this more so than anybody else on this panel right now. Tell us, from your perspective, what do the people of Andros need to be doing and the people of the Bahamas need to be doing to ensure that we are not disenfranchised yet again through this project?
Yeah, for me, it's very simple. You ask about the solutions. So if you're going to, well, not if you, any government that is serious about empowering our people, and has to come from the citizens, pushing, like Alan pointed out. The approach to it is very simple. And that's why I shared things with Bahamians, that if you know another Bahamian, I've not sat in my position. I've been to the cabinet 3 times. Show me another Bahamian who has done it. And so you don't need to be guessing these situations. What is the solution out of this? If you're going to have a sovereign wealth fund, which you must, it's not legitimate if you don't engage our University of the Bahamas or BAMSI, because first of all, we need to do a proper audit of the thousands of resources in this country. And then what are the written things in law that says any mineral being extracted in this country is the right that belongs to Bahamian citizens. And so we should not be cutting private deals like we did for generations with our sand, with our limestone, with our salt, all of these things. The same thing with our ports. Every ship coming to our country, they don't pay a single dollar environmental tax. Why is it that the container ship, the cruise ship, the oil tankers, the sports fishing yacht, And so these things are the way they are because these families who control the economy use this system to benefit themselves. And see, before this whole issue of resources became popular, we were fighting this issue. One of the biggest battles was that fly fishing legislation, which took 22 years to get passed. The 6 tourism associations fought against it. The Marina Association fought against it. The Bahamas National Trust fought against it. Not a single minister of tourism supported. And why is it? Because it's the first legislation passed in our country history that laid the foundation for Bahamians to be true owners in our #1 industry. This is all about ownership. It doesn't matter you have the gold, the diamond, the copper. It's no different than South Africa and Haiti. Haiti's got a lot of gold. They got all kinds of mineral resources.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about what are the policies that's going to shift it and put the ownership so that all the citizens of the country benefit from it. And so we cannot be fooled, as Alan pointed out, with these sham things of what you say, well, a sovereign wealth fund that they pass for someone to come and drill for oil or to just give you a kind of watered down version. Because that's what those families, they know that this issue is a burning issue with the public. And if they have their way, they would make this a political issue where the PLP or the FNM would be bragging and say, oh, my party implement this. And at the end of the day, here's what I want to share with the Bahamians finally. And this is going to be very brief. This whole issue of ports, and that's why this show is so powerful and timely. We didn't just start losing our ports, okay? I followed the policies from the 90s. When Ingram came in and under Christie, they were going to move Arawak Key to Clifton, right? Mr. Christie got kicked out. They locked up Arawak Key and made it exclusive to a few. So let's look at the airports. We own General Aviation. They took that away. And if you look at the different airports, the government is speaking to public-private partnership. Anytime you listen to these things, listen, look at the newspaper. They say that they're going to put out for Porter's Key. It means that once they capture Morgan's Bluff, all those mail boats that go to every family island will remain under the control of the same families. So Bahamians must realize this port issue isn't only on the sea. They have been strategically taking away the assets that belong to the citizens of this country for many, many years. Michelle, Bahamians sit there and don't realize that more than 70% of the fresh water that is used by water and sewage to the general public, it is being bought from private companies. Now you could imagine that. Your water company has been taken over, and Bahamians thought that they was getting some roads in Nassau when they were digging up the roads. Water and sewage buys the water and sell it to the public at the end of the day. So they took your Batelco, they taken your power company, they took control of your water company, they taking over your seaports and airports. And you
and who's in charge of ease of doing business? Who's in charge of ease of doing business?
Lynn Holowesco.
It's all connected, people.
Yes, it's all connected.
All connected. All you got to do is open your eyes and see what's going on in this country. And when you have the nerve to speak out against it, then they try to lash out against you personally.
But here's the thing. Here's what I'm glad you called her name, because her daughter is in charge of the food program, right? And if her daughter was right here now, it was me and my brother who took them to the west coast of Andros in 1993. These are one of the families who have controlled our education system from the inception. And Bahamians don't realize, while they brag about being 12th generation Bahamians, we should open our minds and say, if they are 12th generation Bahamians, they were not lobbying for equality for 12 generations. You want to fight for majority rule, political independence, and then they went on a rampage to decimate the middle class and reversing all the gains that you made. But we look at these patients as being credible individuals and call them successful without understanding how they obtain their wealth and what they continue to do. So
I'm saying, Michelle, this is where the sovereign wealth come in. Yes, we talked about, the BAMSI and everything else. Again, here's what a sovereign wealth does. A sovereign wealth does nothing more than to take possession of every asset, including those held by BNT, including the shipping lanes and everything. We must first take 100% possession of everything. Then the sovereign wealth fund who would engage sovereign asset management, that's when the university, BAMSI, and everything come in to begin to examine the assets. And it's the same thing, we begin to look at the shipping lanes. The most important thing is very simple. A sovereign wealth fund giving exclusive ownership of all assets, known and unknown, tangible and intangible, to a sovereign wealth fund to hold in perpetual time for the shared benefits of behemoths. That's it. Then when we take possession of every single thing, even the air we breathe if we have to, then we begin to discuss on how to manage it for the benefit of behemoths.
Okay, I want to read a text, and then this will give way for you guys to see how people who want to become involved, what they can do and where they can go. This text says, "Hello, Miss Malcolm. My name is Sandra Cooper. I'm an American/Grand Bahamian. The Ash family owns lands in Kemp Bay, Andros, not too far from where all the atrocities are happening. If there is a website that I can go to and get more enlightened, please forward it to me. Thank you in advance." Okay, so gentlemen, how do people get involved? What do they do? Is there a site that they can go to? Is there a petition they can sign? How do people get actively involved in this?
For me, Michelle, I would simply say, look for just go to AllenCJohnson.com, which gives you all of my Facebook pages. Believe it or not, I've committed myself by the end of this month to full-time go back into advocacy for education and edification of my Bahamian people. And so I will be doing some shows and doing and I would tell her, tune into your show because I'm going to be back here time and time again. But what happens is if you reach out to me, you would see a link to Michelle's show also, and whenever I'm there. But what it is an education process. And I actually talk about land. This is why the Prime Minister only want to give you a fraction of the land. If you actually was to put the land, the crown land and every land into a sovereign wealth fund, which will create a land registry, you will see the millions of acres of land that has been taken out of the Prime Minister office for private gain.
C.Allen, so I can't let you go any further, C.Allen. We only got 2 minutes left in the show. I got to give Prescott an opportunity to say his final word.
Yeah. See, Michelle, because I've studied this from the inception, we spend time investing in building institutions. If Bahamians want to deal with this system, you can join the Bahamas Natural Resources Foundation. Because for 30 years, they established the Bahamas sports fishing, then the fly fishing. And that's how I learned about these families. We went to cabinet, showed the wealth of the country, and it was denied. The foundation is not corrupted. There is no deals was cut, and they have nothing on us. The minute enough citizens join the foundation today, Bahamians will be economically liberated, because you can checkmate the government. If 20,000 Bahamians join the Bahamas Natural Resources Foundation, we wouldn't be having this discussion. You see how the Democrats use the lawyers to fight against Trump in the court? We will not need, because you will be speaking with 50,000 Bahamians, 100,000 Bahamians to the government, and they will have to implement all of these things because you will have the Bahamians speaking with one voice. So www.bahamasnaturalresources.org. Join it and get involved.
Gentlemen, it's 1 o'clock. Thank you so much for being a part of this important discussion today. Thanks to Andrew Allen, who was on the phone with us earlier in the show. C.Allen Johnson, Prescott Smith, you guys rock. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you who tuned in today, whether on live Facebook stream or on 93.9 Glory FM. Listen, like and share the show, people. We need to get the word out, okay? That's going to do it for today's show. I really appreciate all of our sponsors who made today's show possible. And tomorrow's Wellness Wednesday, so I want you to tune in to learn about how you can protect your health, particularly in this COVID environment. That's going to do it. Thanks so much for being here. I'm Michelle Malcolm. Good afternoon, everyone.